Hello, everyone. Great to see you here at our joint webinar together with QS Solution. My name is Artem Krumich. I'm the also Group Center of Competence Lead for Cybersecurity. And today we are going to tell you about our joint approach on how we see cybersecurity services and how it can help you improve your customer and your own cybersecurity state. I will do a short introduction describing what we at TELS are doing within our competence center. First of all, I would like to mention that nevertheless, was pandemic situation. It was tough year 2020 for many businesses, but for cyber criminals, it made a huge profit. If we go and look at how the e-crime ecosystem looks currently, we see that existing cybercrime is still about services, distribution, and of course, cybercrime monetization. Although methods which are used for malware distribution largely remain the same, criminal actors continue to find new ways to bypass the security measures. And this is why we really believe that investing in cybersecurity still is the #1 priority for any customer type of any size. Because with all the recent attacks, including supply chain-based attacks, including malware, it's still about companies' business success and how companies are not able to do and provide their services to the customer and just continue to close their businesses, and of course also influenced by existing post-pandemic situation. This is also a reason why cybersecurity market development continues to be growing year by year. Of course, many consultant companies have their own calculation on cybersecurity compound aggregate growth rate. It may vary from 6% to 14%, but on average, we at TELS are counting that market growth within upcoming 4 to 5 years will be around 10%. And what is more interesting, there is a space for business growth within cybersecurity in any market segment. Nevertheless, today you are investing in infrastructure security or business continuity. All those solutions will grow year by year, and this will allow companies who are not doing cybersecurity business to grow their portfolio to provide best-in-class services. Still understanding that the majority of companies at the moment are SMBs or SMEs, we need to understand key company issues. First of all, cybersecurity is not a core competency for SMB and SME. Lack of budget, which is pretty understandable, and not knowing the way where to invest money and if which cybersecurity solutions to choose is still a problem. And of course, shortage of cybersecurity professionals still remains on the market. Salaries for cybersecurity professionals skyrocketed, and there are just not enough specialists to be in every company doing business nowadays. So we at also are investing within all our countries to provide our partners and their end customers with best-in-class solutions, to have at least 2 vendors within, as we call it, cybersecurity stack, providing solutions and services from authentication to system management, endpoint security, network security, and of course enrich it with our educational services, which are available across all our countries. And this is why we're working also improving our cybersecurity portfolio. You may see many familiar brands, and the amount of brands are expanding months over months. What is more interesting, that at the moment, Portfolio doesn't mean it's a successful sale for any partner. What we believe a successful sale is gaining a trust both for the vendor and gaining trust for the end customer, providing your expertise, and only then adding your portfolio solutions to complement and to match customer needs. This is why we believe that our cloud marketplace platform is a great opportunity to every existing also customers, not only to provide cybersecurity vendors solutions or services, but also to enrich them with possibility of your own solutions or services to be delivered within one ecosystem to the end customers. So now with our also cloud marketplace, you're able to add not only vendor cybersecurity assessment services, but also your installation and provide a complied invoicing and reporting to your customers. And we believe that this is how the monetization of unique users should work. And if we go to a drop down of a sales cycle, we know that majority of our partners are doing Microsoft Office sales, which is usually resulting like a revenue of now around €9 per month per user. But this is only top of an iceberg, because and this is why cybersecurity is also underestimating by our resellers, and we believe this is a thing you should invest into, or at least to check the possible solution. So if you are doing nowadays Microsoft Office sales, the next logical step is to provide your customers with a cybersecurity assessment services, like we will do a presentation today with QS Solutions. And then, based on an assessment report, you will gain a full visibility of your customer cybersecurity gaps, and will be able to provide all other cybersecurity services like email protection or data protection or secure access or even awareness and educational services. So all together, knowing that, so you can calculate if you are doing one user's Microsoft Office seat sale, which is around €9, potentially you have a possibility to grow this number up to €111 per month per unique user, which is giving you a total business possibility to have €1,300 per year. Imagine how big and how fast you can grow your existing business. This is why we believe that it's the right approach to start speaking with your customers on with a cybersecurity assessment level. And if you are interested in how we at also can assist you to do a joint business, how we can do joint planning, feel free to reach out to us in chat, or feel free to reach out to me by email or by LinkedIn. And now I would like to pass the stage to Dennis Doles from QS Solution, who will deep dive in cybersecurity assessment tool, more detailed description, and you are free to ask your questions all throughout the event, and we'll manage and answer your questions. Dennis, I will pass my word to you.
Thank you very much, Artjums, and thanks everyone for joining today. Glad that you're all here. My name is Dennis Doles. I'm a partner manager with QS Solutions, and during today's webinar, we will discuss cybersecurity assessments indeed, so assessments in general, but we will also discuss and look at a demonstration of the cybersecurity assessment tool. Now, before we go into the topics of today, a very brief introduction on QS Solutions. QS Solutions is a ISV. We are developing security and governance solutions, mostly focused on the Microsoft ecosystem. We are a Microsoft partner, strategic Microsoft partner, and a good partner with also as well. Working with a great partner channel with over 400 partners worldwide using our software solutions. And the focus of today's event will be on the cybersecurity assessment tool, the one that you see on the left-hand side. The only thing important here to know actually is that we are also a system integrator. We deliver some services, some security services and Microsoft services in the Netherlands, which means that we very well understand the business that you are in as a IT vendor and a partner as well. What we will discuss today is the following topics. We will briefly discuss the cyber landscape. We will discuss the CSAT value proposition, how it works, and also discuss what are we going to deliver as a result of the assessment. Of course, we will go into a short demonstration of the CSAT product, so you get to know the product a bit more, you see the user interface, and finally we will close off with how can you become a partner, how can you train yourself on the CSAT, and what options are there. Now, going into the first topic, the cyber landscape, and instead of looking at the threats that Artyom's covered also on the client side, I think one of the messages that we can take from the presentations from Artyom's is that there is a huge market on the security side of IT. And this is a transition that's currently happening on in the partner ecosystem. Many IT vendors or managed service providers are transitioning into becoming a managed security service provider, MSSP. And this, of course, is a great transition from a business perspective, but obviously doesn't come without any challenges. Being an MSP and keeping the IT systems operational of clients, well, selling those services is really different than selling security, which is more like selling an insurance. It's to every business manager, it completely makes sense that you spend money on keeping the email system up and running, or that you need a system for the financials and the salaries. And if you manage those systems as an MSP, well, it makes sense that you are managing those systems, and the need for those systems is pretty clear to the business of your client's organization. Now, selling security is not something which is on the highest priority list of a business manager. So selling security is rather difficult. And that also has to do with transitioning into a managed security service provider, which could come across as one of the difficulties in this transition. Now, obviously, there could be many more difficulties here. So I would like to launch a brief poll question to you to hear about you and your experience transitioning into an MSSP, or maybe it's not the terminology that fits to your organization, but at least developing a security portfolio. And what do you think is most difficult in this transition? 5 different answer possibilities, and maybe you can look into the poll question and answer this. I will take one slide, and then maybe we can discuss the outcomes. And one of the slides that I want to discuss is more on the client side, and asking the question, well, if it's such a huge market, why is it that most clients do not have the security they need? And Artyom's briefly touched on that too. There is, especially in SMB, there is a couple of arguments. But I think the most important argument here is that to many organizations, security simply is not a business priority. They see it as a cost instead of an investment, which also means that the way we discuss security with end customers is also quite different. Now, I'm briefly looking into the poll results, and I think the most answered currently with 39% is selling security services to the client, obviously in line with the fact that security is very often not a business priority. And the second one, also in line with the presentation of Artyom's, is finding the skilled employees. And that's obviously a global issue that we all have, IT in general, and then security specifically. I think there is a big gap between the need in the market and the skills and the resources that we have available globally. Now, that first point, selling security, we might come closer to a solution at the end of this webinar by starting off with cybersecurity assessments and adding that into your portfolio as an enabler to start those security conversations with your clients effectively. And that's actually also the background where we come from as QS Solutions, where we saw the market demands that were shifting over the course of the last 10 years, maybe even, where obviously security awareness within the management board has grown significantly. And it has to do with market demands and clients asking their suppliers to take security seriously and to ensure privacy, but also law and regulations and the headlines in the news, of course, were a big help to increase the security awareness. Now, although that awareness is there is still limited actions taken by organizations. And one of the reasons that we see as QS Solutions is that many organizations do not know what their current cybersecurity posture is. They do not know what the status of security is in their organization. And therefore, it's really hard to pinpoint where you need to allocate your limited security budget. And also to align between business management and IT and security management within the client's organization. And that's exactly what our focus is with this assessment. We want to help organizations to gain insight in a quick assessment, to gain insight into their cybersecurity status, and based on their status, making recommendations to improve their security portfolio. By default, we have mapped most of our recommendations where technology can be a solution. We have mapped that to the Microsoft security ecosystem. So the Microsoft security solutions in Azure and Microsoft 365 will be automatically recommended based on the client's situation from the Cset tooling. Obviously, if you work with other solutions, definitely you can make changes to the recommendations and highlight the solutions that will fit to your portfolio. I hope that gives a clear image to the concept already, but let's make that a little bit more visual, taking a typical IT infrastructure from a client, which obviously today is in many cases a hybrid IT environment. Local servers, local Active Directory, PCs and laptops that people work with, and obviously more and more resources being migrated or added into the cloud. Office 365 in many organizations in use, potentially other cloud solutions, some with approval of IT, some others shadow IT. Now, this IT environment is already quite a complex environment for IT personnel and IT partners to manage all of this. And it gets even more complex if we add in the online activity. So users and employees working on a daily basis in this IT infrastructure, creating new resources, inviting new partners or clients to have access to company resources, for example, in Office 365. So a lot of security risks here, or potential security risks, which is quite hard to manage. Although there is a very mature portfolio on cloud security solutions in the market. For example, the Microsoft security solutions. And if we look at the typical way we are selling security in general, very often, as we are all technical enthusiasts, we like to sell security based on product demonstrations and product presentations, or even free or discounted proof of concepts. Now, that might create and generate some urgency and might convince the IT side of your business and from the client, but especially business management, they are not being convinced by cool functionality or great encryption technology in one of these tools. They need something else to feel the urgency to not only invest in the license of the product, but also to invest in your services to manage that product and to implement that solution as well. And that's why with these assessments, based on the hybrid IT environment and connecting to some resources in that environment, we can pull relevant security data and use that data to pinpoint some risks and attach the right remediation or the product to that potential risk. You see a couple of examples in the slide that I show you right now. Of course, this depends on the situation of the client that you work with, right? So it is quite important that you can verify some areas where they have good security in place already. Well, maybe not focus on that area for now, and focus on the areas and the solutions where they do not have any other solution in place at the moment. Then maybe at a later stage come back to the other solution, and maybe if that's a competitor of yours, try to push them out via the good work that you did in the other areas. So the scenarios to use this concept and to use this tool are quite broad. And we've been partnering with Microsoft for the last 3 years, but also we started this year. And based on those experiences, we can say that this cybersecurity assessment can work in many different scenarios. We have proved that this can work, and the conversation definitely helps to migrate clients from an on-prem situation into a cloud situation. So the cloud journey, as Microsoft would call it, migrating clients from their on-prem infrastructure into Microsoft or Office 365, making sure that you also start deploying those solutions. But also on the other side of the spectrum, looking at clients where you might already sold Microsoft 365 E5 with many security solutions in there. And then the question is, how do we prioritize the implementation of those solutions as well? And making sure that you create a business case to implement those solutions. That's what many of our partners are using the Cset for. So different scenarios, and based on the outcomes from the client, it will help you to make the right recommendations. Based on the assessment, obviously the assessment itself or the services that you do by providing periodical assessment, well, that service can already be a profitable business. But important to understand here is that starting with a cybersecurity assessment, it will help you to generate many more opportunities, and the result of those assessments are actually that you can sell additional licenses as well as additional services or managed services to these clients, because you have proven the business case based on the risks of your client's organization. So that's an important fact to understand from this slide. It's not just the assessment itself. The assessment is there to keep that security conversation going with your clients, but in the end there is a big upsell opportunity from every assessment, which allows you to increase the revenue per client. Moving into the next topic, how does Cset work? And I will touch on some basic technical items here as well. Obviously, if you're interested, we can always host another call where we dive into specific technical needs or specific partner needs. So we're happy to support you together with the also contacts that you have. Important first fact is that the Cset is not a SaaS solution. We are not a cloud solution. It is a solution which is installed within the client's IT infrastructure. The reason behind this simply is that many clients are reluctant to have all of their security data in a cloud. And to remove that difficult conversation, we decided, okay, we will deliver a application which can be installed on a Windows operating system within the client's environment. From there is an easy-to-use web interface, which I will show you later on. And based in this web interface, you can set up different scans to the sources that you see in the screen here, where we have a very comprehensive scan for anything that has a Windows operating system, service PCs, laptops. We can also do a discovery of network devices with SNMP or Unix-based devices using SSH. Then, of course, we have the Microsoft cloud environment with Microsoft 365, and all those services in there, including Azure AD, and also the Azure tenant is a source that we collect information from. Finally, local Active Directory still in use with many organizations and a main source for identity and access management. So we also go into the Active Directory on the client or directories if there is a forest to get some interesting security data from there. Now, with all the technical information, you can probably make many recommendations already, but security is obviously not only technical security, it's also organizational policies and procedures. And therefore, the CSAT always combines the technical data together with a questionnaire to get the insights which are needed to provide an organization with a comprehensive cybersecurity assessment. So it's always a matter of the technical data and the questionnaire. Those two together will give you the means to give the client a roadmap on how to prioritize and implement new security solutions. To dive into a bit more on the technical side, but to dive into the data collection from that CSAT environment, from the CSAT installation, in that interface, you can set up the different scans. Two sources I would like to highlight. The first one is those Windows operating systems. The Windows operating systems can be scanned basically in two methodologies. The first one is to scan using a dissolvable agent over the local network, using WMI to traffic that dissolvable agent to the devices that are in scope of the assessment, and then removing that agent, which is an automated procedure, after the scan was performed. Now, especially in these days where many people are working from home, obviously scanning through the local network might not result in a very high percentage, although that's not even needed for a cybersecurity assessment. But to have a higher coverage, you could also use a remote management tool which can run PowerShell scripts and then push the agent out based on a PowerShell script. So, for example, if you use Microsoft Intune in a cloud environment and you manage those devices using Microsoft Intune, you just distribute the same dissolvable agent, but then using a PowerShell script in Intune. Last fact here is the Microsoft Cloud environment, because we scan that using the Graph API of Microsoft. When all the data is there, you can do an analysis. You answer that questionnaire more or less in an interview with the client. So don't hand over the questionnaire, but make it more of a workshop to discuss the topics of those questions, and then you mark the right answers in that question. That's proven to be very valuable for many partners. And then when all those results are in, you can basically create two documents. One is a very comprehensive document in Word, a report with all the information about the assessment, 40 plus pages, to be used with people with more of an IT and security background. It holds all the different details and facts that you need to prove your points. Now, the second item that you can generate there is a PowerPoint presentation, more or less a management presentation, which holds the highlights of the assessments and allows you to really show some results and to basically present the plan of approach to start improving based on the findings that you had in the assessment. So that's more a management presentation. Both files can be changed to your likings. You can brand it with your own logo and corporate identity. Then it's important to know that we have two types of assessment, and obviously it has to do with the different security need if you look at an SMB client versus a larger enterprise or corporate organization. It's the full scan versus the quick scan. Today I will focus mostly on the quick scan solution aimed at SMB organizations, which we call up to 300 employees. That's where the quick scan can be used for. It is a quick check on the basic security hygiene, and it uses a more practical security framework and a quick report. So it is not too comprehensive for an SMB, which if you run a full scan with a typical SMB client, they might feel overwhelmed with the number of recommendations from that assessment. Although there are some areas and some sectors where a full scan could still be applicable in SMB, and you could think about the heavy regulated industry where a full scan could apply. That full scan is using the Center of Internet Security 20 controls as the cybersecurity framework. So that's a very comprehensive and well-recognized framework. Using that framework with an SMB organization, that might be a bit of an overkill. The assessment itself and the typical engagement timeline, which means the time that a consultant would spend executing the assessment for a quick scan, is only about half a day. And these 4 hours might be spread over different contact moments, but in total, a consultant would spend around 4 hours on executing this assessment. And it has to do, of course, with a lot of automation in the program, in the CSAT, and also having good and valuable predefined recommendations based on the outcomes from the assessment, which allows you to run this in fairly short time frame. Then for a full scan assessment, this goes up to 3 days. Typically working with larger clients, it also involves a bit more discussion on security. So for example, conducting a questionnaire in the quick scan takes about 45 minutes. Doing it with a full scan with many different stakeholders, that would take around 3 hours. So there is a big difference between the quick scan and the full scan. And then, of course, it makes sense to have this CSAT as a one-time assessment, but also looking at a managed service, or maybe not a managed service, but at least a periodical service. You can really use the CSAT for periodical services for let's say a quarterly checkup on the cybersecurity hygiene, or monthly reports on certain controls that you want to highlight to a client. And that's definitely a value that the CSAT brings to you as well. Before we dive into the demonstration and the deliverables of the CSAT, I would like to find out from you who is the point of contact that you discuss cybersecurity on the client side. Is it more or less the system engineer or the IT and security manager with a voice in the management team of your client, or is it more the business side, the business management, or the director or owners of the organization? So if you could go to the poll question and help me answer that, I can take that with me in the rest of the presentation as well. In the meantime, let's have a quick look at the deliverable. I already mentioned to you a comprehensive report in Word. You can finalize that yourself, but also a management presentation. Those are the two files. When generated from the CSAT, these files are 80% ready. The last 20% is still a manual job for you to go over some of the predefined recommendations, to potentially change those recommendations to your liking, but also to compile a management summary and to create an action plan, which is in line with whatever you've discussed in the past with that client, and of course, with your cybersecurity portfolio. So those are the changes that you can make in those two files, and it will hold an action list with urgent action items and quick wins. So it's not always about a heavy investment. Some quick wins is just simply reviewing the Active Directory administrators, or patching a couple of machines, separating the Wi-Fi for guests in the network. Stuff like that is easy to do. And then next to that, there is really some IT projects that you can also position with the client. Now, while I'm switching to the other slide, let me see what the results are from the scans. Well, quite often it's the director and the owner, which is a very good thing, I think, because these are indeed the people, especially in Europe with GDPR, who are also responsible for security on a personal level, if they are the owner or the shareholder of the company. And then the second one with 30% is IT and security manager. So that's an interesting finding, I guess. I will take that with me in the rest of the presentation, and maybe even in this slide already. You see the scoring mechanism here. So there are a couple of controls which we measure during the assessment, organizational controls and IT security controls. Both of these controls are mapped into a maturity framework, where 1 means nothing is implemented or unknown, and a 4 would mean that the client has monitoring on this, they have alerting on this, and business management or senior management takes responsibility for the topic. Now, in SMB, you rarely come across 4s, but the average should be, on all scores, it should be the same. So what we often find is that clients have an overspend or an overinvestment in infrastructure security, where they score a 3, for example. But then data protection or application security or even simply privileged identity management are topics they have not put any security budget towards, which means that you've basically put a couple of locks on the front door, but you leave the back door open. And it's a matter of finding out where the weakest link is and ensuring that you start improving and strengthening that weak link. That's what this security assessment, these scoring items, makes quite attractive also towards business management. So many of you have answered that poll question where the director or the owner comes out on top. And sometimes these people do not have technical knowledge to understand if you start talking about secure configuration and whether SMB version 1 should be enabled, yes or no. They don't want to be bothered with that. They do want to see the risk that the organization is taking. And if you score a 1 on application security, I think it's pretty clear that you need to start doing and acting on this topic. Of course, these figures are supported by technical details as well as the answering of the questionnaire. So these figures are not just made up, it's really based on the findings of the assessment with your client. And then that also results into automated recommendations based on the questions and the answering of the questions, but also based on the technical data. Now, let's switch to a demonstration, a brief demonstration of the Cset solution, where I will log into the Cset demo system. It is an online system. Normally, the same web interface will be hosted on the machine where you install the Cset within the client's IT infrastructure. So in this whole overview, it's pretty simple and straightforward forward user interface. It's 5 different components, services, and endpoints. It's where you configure the scope of the assessment. Then we have the analysis screens where all of the data is coming back. The questionnaire is available in the tool, and a couple of reporting screens. I will walk through the system from left to right, basically, showing you how easy it is to set up the different scans, how you can analyze the data, what type of data is available, and then finally closing off with a couple of report screens. Now, if we go to the services, on the left-hand side, you see a list of the services which are available in the quick scan. I'm using the quick scan for this demo purpose, like the discovery of SNMP and SSH that will be part of a full scan. So they are not listed in this demo environment. The way to set up those services is very straightforward. In this case, Active Directory, click on New, and then add the required information to have an Active Directory scan done. So here you can enter certain information, and then you get a listing like this. Simply click the scan button to start the scan of the Cset. Another interesting one is the Microsoft Cloud, where we are scanning through the application ID and application secret, which is the way to access the Graph API of Microsoft. So those items are listed in this screen. You create that application. There is very good documentation on our end to create that application. We even have an executable for that, so no manual task there. and then you provide the application ID and secret in this screen, together with a couple of keywords, which you can customize, of course, because the CSAT also does a straightforward search to these keywords to identify potential privacy-sensitive information or secret information like patency information and stuff like that. You can really look that up based on the keywords. No dynamic search, no comprehensive data collection, really focusing on a simple search to verify whether there is security information inside documents and to start the discussion on data encryption and document encryption with the client. Clicking the scan button again, and then the results will come back in the analysis screens. Let's zoom in on the endpoints briefly. We already discussed the two methodologies. You can scan based on the local network through WMI, and then also work through a PowerShell script with a remote management tool like Microsoft Intune. Those are the two methodologies. If you choose for the first one, this will be the screen where you work in. You define the range or the source where we need to scan those endpoints. Could be the full directory with all the accounts, or it could be an IP range of the servers, for example. Important here, we do need administrative access on those machines. So you can enter the local administrator here or a domain administrator, someone with administrative permission on the endpoints you want to scan. Then after setting up the scope, you can discover what machines are currently available under the search button here, and then you get the feedback in the screen here. And then if you're happy with the result, just click the scan button or select a couple of machines that you want to bring in scope of the scan. All information will come back in these analysis screens where you basically see three main topics: endpoints, on-prem services, and cloud services. In the on-prem services or in the on-prem endpoint, this is the result from that Windows operating system scan. So you can quickly see what machines are there, what version of the operating system is running, BitBlocker status, etc. The CSAT is helping you to focus on some machines with a potential vulnerability by the automated threat level on the right-hand side. So you can hover over these machines and then further investigate the machine if something is suspicious or if you want to investigate. So, for example, with this Windows 7 PC, you have the details here of the operating system. You can check the accounts logging into the system, applications which are installed, or even the antivirus which is running on that machine. We can all pull that into the CSAT, and you can review that here and give your opinion on that PC by using the flags that you also saw in front of the machines here. Now, it's interesting to look per machine, of course, but in the end, the cybersecurity maturity is defined on the status of all machines together. And that's also why I previously mentioned that taking a sample of the environment is enough, because the maturity is defined based on the weakest link, basically. So if you see under, let's take missing updates, many machines unpatched, you can also say, okay, the patch management procedure, which is or is not implemented in the organization, is not effective. And that's how you can really grow in terms of the cybersecurity maturity of a client. Other items, secure configuration. Obviously, we check certain settings in the Windows operating system. There is a lot more screens. I won't go through them in detail today. Obviously, we can do that later on or as part of your partner onboarding process. Some other screens, Active Directory accounts. This is the screen where you can view and review the accounts in Active Directory, sort on the last logon date, check the number of bad password attempts, or look at the admin count. And then also with the automated threat level on the right-hand side, you can see certain accounts where the setting no password required is switched on, etc. Or a guest account, which obviously unnamed accounts is already a bad idea. Also putting into the CSAT the password policy, which is set to the Active Directory domains and objects. So that's also shown here. And then we go to the cloud side, where we have many information on Azure and also the Microsoft 365 environment, of course, with Azure AD, for example. Quite an interesting screen is these Azure AD external users, where you really see the list of external users who have access or gained access to company resources, for example, by inviting them to Office 365 or Microsoft Teams. This is the list of external users. I will come back on the Sharepoint Online and show you how we can also show where these users have access to. And then another interesting one is the Azure Security Center recommendations. We really pull in all those recommendations from Azure Security Center as well to help you have a discussion on how to further enhance the security of the Azure platform as well. Intune, also quite interesting. If you have people with or clients with an implementation of Intune, you can review the devices which are managed by Intune in this screen, see what the sync status is, but also looking at the compliance policy which are set to those devices, because implementing Intune is a good thing, but without a proper compliance policy, there is still not really a improvement on the security side. So we also provide recommendations on those compliance policies. And finally, the SharePoint Online stuff, which is in this overview externally shared. So this is the resources which are actually shared with external users. And that could be a team site, it could be a SharePoint site. And you see what permission is provided to the person and to what resource. In this screen, results of the PII, so the keyword scan are shown here, so you can see what documents contain these keywords and then do a sample test together with the client or allow the IT admin of the client to investigate. And maybe a final one here is the MFA status in Office 365. So we also check what the status of MFA is in the tenant, of course, separating the administrative accounts from the normal user accounts. Now, there was a lot of data. I'm sure there will be some questions, but let's take those questions later on together with you one-on-one in a call. I'm happy to set that up with you. We also have the questionnaire tool. It's not too much to tell. There is a couple of questions based on those controls per question, 4 answer possibilities. Basically, you take this questionnaire with a client in an interview way or a workshop where you discuss the topics of those questions, but you are the person marking the answers and not the client themselves. It makes sure that the answers are in line with what is actually happening with the client, but also it helps you to have that security conversation already, because by discussing these topics, clients will open up, they will discuss their future IT plans, which is great pre-sales input for you guys. And finally, the report section, where you will find summary information from the analysis screens. So here we list in figures what was scanned and what the results of those scans are. So you can quickly see the operating systems, or you can see the results from the secure configuration or missing updates, etc. End of life products. That's all listed here. Same goes for on-prem services on the Active Directory, for example, or the cloud services of Microsoft, where we also fully embed the Microsoft Secure Score. And of course, the maturity overview as well. And this is if you do periodical assessments, let's say every quarter. This is also quite interesting to compare against a previous assessment and present to a client whether they are making progress or whether there is a decline in a certain control. So that also helps you to prove that your cybersecurity services are actually having a positive impact on the client's risk appetite. Then that was the demonstration. Let me quickly scan through the questions because I did hear some things. Licensing, I will come back on later. Report is available in German. Yes, it is. Let's see if there is anything else. And the demonstration that I showed indeed was the quick scan overview. So all of the data that I presented is available in the quick scan. I think I briefly covered all questions with that. Now, going back to the presentation and closing off with a couple of more topics, discussing the value for clients and the value proposition, also discussing the go-to-market and how to become a partner. Those will be the final topics in the last 8 minutes. I'm not going to read out loud all of these value statements, but I think it's important to understand that for a client, this assessment is definitely helpful for them to pinpoint what their security status is at the moment, but also to prove that they take security seriously. By having this assessment and by having the report, if something happens in the future and a government body or an auditor says, well, that went completely wrong, they can always say, okay, I have this report, I've started to make some improvements. I cannot do it all at once because that applies to everyone in the world. We cannot be 100% secure, but I have a good program and a roadmap on my improvements, and I'm tracking that over time as well. So I think that's a very important fact here, what clients can gain from this, making sure that their limited security budget goes to the right security projects. Obviously, for you as a partner, it brings a big opportunity to sell additional licenses, Microsoft licenses, and other security licenses. And it helps you to shorten the sales cycle by having those evidence in the reports, by having a valuable discussion with the client based on the risk profile of their environment. Going into the go-to-market strategy, there is basically 2 licensing options, and the licenses are available in your Also Cloud marketplace. So in the local revenue or the local currency, you can look up the prices in the Also Cloud marketplace under cybersecurity assessment tool. There's basically 2 license options. There is one-time licenses, which allows you to do one assessment for one client. That's the most straightforward one, and there is even a discounted first quick scan license as part of the program. I'm sure the Also team will share with you the information, and I think even on the webpage where you registered for the webinar, you can also apply for that discounted license. Then the other SKUs, the other products in the marketplace are partner subscriptions, which allow you to do an unlimited number of assessments, basically 2 flavors of partner subscriptions. There is a partner subscription which allows you to do an unlimited number of one-time assessments, and there is a partner subscription which allows you to do an unlimited number of subscriptions with end customers, meaning you can also run multiple assessments throughout the course of a year with your clients as well. So if you want to know more, reach out to your Also contact, and they can probably guide you into the right direction in the marketplace and discuss the suitable pricing program for you. The good thing is you can really get started with a one-time license without a commitment. And to get started, of course, we can have a call and discuss this in more detail, or reach out to your Also contacts. They're happy to further discuss this. There is the CSA Readiness Program. You can subscribe for the program with the links that Also will provide to you, and it's really an easy program. It includes e-learning, also giving you a test license, so you can run the CSAT against your test environment or your local environment to get hands-on before you start the first customer assessment, where we can also provide backup support and support in that first assessment to make sure that it is a success from the first one, and then moving forward to many more assessments. In this readiness program, we give you access to a partner portal where you really have all the documents centrally stored, including manuals, pre-sales and sales materials, e-learning program. So there's a lot of content available in our partner portal, and I would say, well, reach out to us, reach out to your also contacts, and of course, to get into the program, sign up for the readiness program. I think in the email that will be shared with you after this webinar, we will include the link so you can register. And if not, then please reach out to the also contacts on your end. So with that, thank you very much for your time. Artjums, thank you for the opportunity to present with you. And looking forward to meet you all, and yeah, have a very nice day.
Yeah, so Dennis, there's also a quick question about the translation. Is the report available in Spanish?
Yes,
probably also French is also interesting for partners.
I think, yes, French is there and Spanish is there as well.
And are there any plans to tailor test to align with HIPAA, PCI?
No, the framework that we chose right now is really based on the CIS control, so the Center for Internet Security, which was recently updated to V8. So we are mapping it back to V8 at the moment. Other security controls we do not have in the system. There is content available online to map CIS back to those other frameworks, but you can imagine there is hundreds of frameworks and sometimes even sector specific or country specific, so we're not aligning to other frameworks than CIS.
And there's a question to describe the difference between quick scan and full scan.
Yeah, I can briefly get back the slide, because this is mostly explaining the difference on a high level. We have an overview, of course, where you see the detailed difference, so I'm happy to share that later on with any viewer who's interested.
Great. And probably the last question about translation. What about Polish language?
Polish is not there, so we're really working with partners. And unfortunately, we do not have a Polish partner yet who has translated this. So yeah, we can work on that together with the partners and the partner ecosystem, of course.
Okay, we have 1 minute left. Okay. Yeah, looks like it. So feel free to contact also team, me or Dennis directly if you have any more questions. So all of you who asked for a test license or NFR kit will be contacted by also managers, and we will proceed with you in a one-to-one discussions. Thank you everyone for joining, and have a nice day, and stay safe, of course. Bye.
Thanks everyone. Bye-bye.